Hey everyone, I'm Samaker or just Sam and welcome to Flipping from 1GP to 1 billion. So as this is the very first episode as a member, I started out by testing out a shitload of new items. This very first go I tried magic pyrologs which didn't buy, combat bracelets, dragon axes, some different Canon 1 vessels, explorer backpacks, dragon pickaxe kits and rings of life. As you can see though, all of it didn't buy, like the logs and most of the Canon 1 stuff. When I later tried selling the stuff, it worked quite well with most of it, such as the rings of life and pickaxe kits. The explorer packs were selling and buying kind of slowly, but they still felt worth doing at the time. The pickaxes had pretty tight margins and I tried to push them as far as I could with overnight flips in particular, but they weren't flipping as I'd like them to. The explorer backpacks started trading a bit faster for a while, so I kept doing those a bit more whilst also trying out rings of dueling and the Sears ring. That ring later fucked me up big time though. I kept testing new stuff such as Ranar seeds and spirit shields. The shields actually worked alright, but I could barely get a single flip out of those damn seeds. The margin on those were barely 1% and I wasn't able to push it one bit. Now here is where shit gets really interesting. At one point, whilst I was flipping the rings of life, some very unusual stuff started happening. So the margin for rings of life has always been about 2k, give or take. I know this both thanks to services like RS Buddy and my own experience flipping them in the past. With items that aren't traded too much, stuff like quest items and anything really that you don't use every day, the price can go up and down like crazy from time to time, because there aren't enough people constantly buying and selling them to keep the price stable. With commonly traded items like peaking and PVMing armor, food, options and skilling resources, that is not the case. The price rarely fluctuates more than a few percent up and down as the prices usually do. This time however, the Rings of Life went from its usual margin of a few tenfold coins at around 2k to 1856 on the low end and 25,000 on the high. That's a profit of almost 1250%. Now, I don't care who you are, what you do and how you flip, you don't see something like that every day with an item traded as much as Rings of Life. But the thing is, that's not it, things get crazier. Shortly after I sold 3 Rings of Life for 25k, mind you, I wasn't really expecting to sell any. I figured somebody would surely start selling a bunch soon and kick the price back down to normal. But instead, the price went up to 85k. I don't know if this was just an occurrence of random coincidence or if there was something or someone messing with the Rings of Life price, but a profit like that on an item like Ring of Life is pretty insane. Spend 2k and make 83k in profit? That's just completely ridiculous. But of course, the price soon went down and while I was able to sell a few, I didn't manage to profit any mind-blowing amounts of this. Maybe if I had caught this a bit sooner. Either way, I went down with my search for new items to flip and tried Games Necklace, Green Dragon Hide and also lost about 250k on that Sears ring I bought, because just after I bought it the price crashed to about 400k from 750. I also tried Amulets of Accuracy, but they didn't seem to trade fast enough for a decent profit, despite decent margins. This time I had left an offer overnight and everything had sold and bought except for the Sears rings as I had lowballed them pretty hard and them damn Green Dragon Hides had not bought or sold. That being on a very tight margin, I was very surprised that even overnight the price hadn't moved even a few percent in any direction for them to either buy or sell. Either way, I had definitely had enough of those. I decided to try some more new stuff whilst as usual going along with the stuff that was working alright. Discs of Returning seemed great at first, but I'm not sure if someone else was undercutting me without me noticing, or they just weren't trading much at the time, but I wasn't having a good time with those. I also tried Coconut Milk, but a similar story with those as they weren't buying and selling as fast as I'd like. Games Necklace was working alright though and Rings of Recall seemed to be okay as well. Gaffin's Blade Body was the first more expensive item that I tried apart from the Sears rings, but it wasn't really working for me. I wasn't pushing the margins too much, but I felt like I was having some bad luck as the price seemed to move up and down between when I was buying and selling. Dwarven helmets were working like a charm though, and whilst I wasn't able to buy crazy amounts and make bank on them, they were still a pretty good profit. These would have been amazing working with a bit smaller cash stack. I also tried Glories, but they were no hit. I kept trying with the Gaffin's Bodies whilst I kept flipping the same items as earlier whilst also trying some more Barrows items, degraded Torag's helms in this case. Whilst I was still struggling with the Gaffin's Bodies dropping in price as I tried to sell them, both the Rings of Life and Dwarven helmets were doing very well. The Adam's hoods were kind of questionable though. Back to some Games Necklaces while just continuing with the previous items as before. The Adam's hoods dropped a bit in price for a while and I managed to stack up on them as they kept buying but not selling for a price I was alright with. Basically, they dropped down in price for a short while, but I wasn't willing to go down with the price. So I ended up having a ton of them and not being able to sell any of them. Eventually though, all 37 of them sold, and I'm glad I didn't lower my prices during their short dip. As the massive holiday drop parties were going on, I figured it might be a good time to try and flip some of the holiday items. The massive amounts of them flooding into the GE did open up the margins a bit, but a bunch of other people seemed to be trying to flip them at the same time. I did make some alright profits though. I kept doing the good old jewelry I had now been doing for quite a while, and I also tried bananas. They seemed slow at times, but they were fairly consistent. In the beginning they were going for some crazy margins at one point, but they eventually settled down. They stayed decent for quite a while. This jewelry and the bananas were working best for me still at this point, and we've moved from 3 million to 12. Here's some quick and very simple statistics of how the episodes have progressed so far, and as always, if you have any feedback, ideas or whatever, feel free to leave them in the comments.